Are you using velocity to measure your agile team's productivity? If so, you might be making a big mistake. Velocity is a crucial metric, but it's often misused and can lead to bad behaviors. In this video, I will share 10 cautions to avoid when using velocity as a metric for your agile team. And watch until the end to learn how to use velocity wisely and avoid common pitfalls. So, with that said, here are 10 cautions to be aware of when using velocity as a metric for your agile team. It is important to remember that velocity is a measure of how much work the team is completing, not the quality or the value of that work. It is possible to have a high velocity and still produce low quality or unnecessary work. So, velocity is not a measure of productivity. Velocity can be affected by many factors, including the team size, experience, and external factors such as holidays, vacations, or even roadblocks and impediments. It is important to track velocity over time to identify the trends rather than relying on just a single data point. So remember, velocity can and will fluctuate. Velocity should not be used as a target or goal for the team. It is simply a measure of how much work the team is completing and should be used as a guide for the future planning and forecasting. So, don't make velocity your target. It is not a target, it is not a goal for the team. The team may be tempted to artificially inflate velocity by, for example, breaking user story into smaller, less valuable pieces or inflating story point estimates itself. So it is important to maintain the integrity of the velocity metric by ensuring that the user stories are valuable and well defined and that story point estimates are accurate and consistent. While velocity is a useful metric, it should not be the only one used to measure teams' performance. Other metrics such as CVC or committed versus completed, such as cycle time, lead time, and the defect rate can provide additional insight into teams' performance and productivity. So don't get hung up on just the velocity. Velocity is not the only metric. Velocity is a metric that is specific to each team. It's an internal measure and cannot be compared directly between different teams. Each team has its own unique capabilities, experiences, and working environment, which can affect the velocity. So, don't compare velocity of two teams. It would be like comparing apples to oranges. So remember, velocity is not comparable between teams. If velocity becomes the primary focus of the team, it can become a source of stress and pressure. This can lead to teams sacrificing the quality and the value in order to meet velocity targets. So, velocity can and will become a source of stress if that becomes a primary focus of the team, primary focus of the management. Velocity is based on the completion of user stories and does not account for changes in scope that may occur during the sprint. So, no new stories should be allowed once the sprint starts. Again, velocity does not account for changes in the scope. If the team is overly optimistic in their velocity estimates, they may commit to more work than they can realistically complete in a given sprint or iteration. If the management is comparing team's velocity to another team, then they are more likely to get tempted to overcommit. This can lead to burnout and a decrease in the productivity. So, too much focus on just the velocity can lead to overcommitment. Remember, velocity is a metric that measures team performance, not individual performance. Using velocity to evaluate individual performance can create a competitive and stressful environment and may not accurately reflect the contributions of each team member. So, big caution, velocity should not be used to evaluate individual performance. By being aware of these cautions, you can avoid common pitfalls associated with using velocity as a metric. You can improve your team's productivity and deliver high quality work. And don't forget that velocity is an internal measurement tool that helps the team understand their own progress and capacity. So you got to keep the velocity internal. So if you want to improve your agile team's performance, use velocity cautiously. Focus on improving the process and celebrate the successes. Remember, the key to success is to use metrics wisely. By following these tips, you can avoid making mistakes and maximize the value of velocity in your agile team.